Don't patronize me.
Hey,
I
what
am
is
a
going
child.
on, everybody, and welcome
I
to
will protect
Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 Now today. Got some more first impressions for you guys. That's right, this time around, we're going to be taking a look at Victorika, who is going to be a brand new 4-star unit that's likely going to be free and available for us through connections or some sort of story. So that's pretty cool. It's really nice to see. And it also looks like she is going to be more PvE oriented, likely to help newer players out, especially because you can get her relatively early on, because you can get her after, I believe, you beat episode 1, right? I think you can access this story. I may be wrong on that, but even then, she might be a pretty decent asset for people trying to clear PvE content. Let's go ahead and take a look at her base stats here, though. Her stat line is okay. It's a really weird star sign to have. So Victorika is a fire 4-star knight that's of the Leo star sign, and you can see her base speed is incredibly low, 97 base speed, and she has a awakening into crit rate though. She starts with 23% crit, which lends us to believe that she's going to be a damage dealer. There are pretty much no other Leo knights out in the game that people really recognize. There's only a couple, and they are, well, 5-star units. So let's start with the first one here, shall we? The first 5-star knight that's a Leo star sign is Fire Charlotte. Fire Charlotte's actually a pretty decent damage dealer. Just kind of falling off in the meta and stuff now, and it's really weird because Fire Charlotte also awakens into crit rate, but as you can see in my build, she doesn't have crit because she's guaranteed crit rate. So again, Fire Charlotte is one of those units that has a Leo star sign, but due to buffs and stuff, doesn't really benefit from the star sign. She's probably one of the units that can actually get her star sign changed in the future, and it'll probably help her quite a bit. But yeah, that's Fire Charlotte. The second unit that also shares the Leo star sign is... that's right, Navy Captain Landy. So I've taken off her self-imprint here, so you can see maybe a bit closer to what like the stat line of Victorika could be. However, it's still not very accurate because you have a ton of bulk that you're likely going to be sacrificing for speed, right? In PvE, the bulk doesn't really matter in most cases. It's different if you're trying to take Victorika to PvP, but that's probably going to be a bit difficult and tricky to do, given her skill set, which we'll talk about very soon. But Navy Captain Landy is usually built with 0 speed and usually on a counter set, which Victorika doesn't need because she kind of has that built in. Again, we'll get to that later, but the star sign is a really tricky one to work with. Even this, you can see, if I'm going for some moderate damage here, even with my self-imprint, if I'm going for some moderate damage, I'm still really low on bulk, right? So it's an issue that hopefully Victorika won't have as a PvE unit, right, if she gets more speed. But again, it's hard to build speed because she has a base 97 speed, even lower than Navy Captain Landy, because keep in mind, she's a 4-star, which has lower base stats than a Nat 5, natural 5-star. Okay, so anyway, that's it for the stat line here. Let's go ahead and head back to Victorika herself and see what she has in store for us with her kit, because that's where all the magic is, right? The star signs and everything, they're all cool. This is where the money's at. So let's start with her skill 2, the Maelstrom Waltz. She attacks all enemies by infiltrating deep into enemy lines and grants counterattack to the caster for 3 turns. You can soul burn this with 10 souls to increase the damage dealt, which is kind of cool, but given she's PvE, you're likely not manually doing anything here. And you see with the animation, she actually looks like a Fire Charlotte using her S3. So again, more parallels to Fire Charlotte being a Leo star sign and then having the same animations as Victorika here, but that's pretty funny. That's pretty cool. Don't know if they did it on purpose. Next up, we have her skill 3, Promised Glory, where she attacks the enemy by rushing them down and grants immunity to all allies for 2 turns. The damage dealt increases proportional to the target's max health. When I first saw this skill here, because I usually look at the skills before I look at the stat lines and everything, personally, when I saw the skill at first, the first thing that came to mind was, wow, that's like Fire Cecilia, but like missing all of the other bonus effects, right? So yeah, the immunity to all allies is pretty cool, especially if you're fighting things like Golem. Unfortunately, you can't take her into the Earth Expedition, because this skill, which is her main nuking skill, is not an AoE, and the Earth Expedition requires you to bring AoE units to deal more damage. You actually get reduced damage if you bring single target units, but the damage dealt increased proportional to target's max health is huge. We can see here in the demonstration when she attacks the golem that this golem is about to lose half of his health bar. Just look at the top there. That's ridiculous. Now, the golem does have defense break here, to be fair, but she's got you covered. Victorika has her S1 Hilag's Pride, where she attacks the enemy with a lance with a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. That's through her skill enhancements here, right? So that's actually going to go really well with her counterattack buff that she gets from her S2. Get the counterattack buff, and she goes to the end of the combat readiness bar. Boss is likely to take a turn before she takes another one. Boss will hit her, she'll counterattack, hopefully inflict decreased defense. Due to her low speed, if you build her with lower speed and more damage, the boss might in fact lap her one more time, giving her yet another chance to inflict that decreased defense. And once you do, you saw how much damage that S3 did. It was pretty nice, right? I can definitely see her being used in PvE content, like I said. Yes, with Golem, but on the other hand, if she is actually pretty decent with like her builds and her stats and stuff, and she could survive Nightmare Raid, you can bring her into Nightmare Raid and hopefully chunk down some bosses there pretty easily too, right? So yeah, we'll see how it plays out with her. If she's a free unit as a 4-star, hopefully she's going to be free. We don't have too many new 4-stars nowadays, right? But when they are released, you know, we have access to them, kind of like Veronica. Veronica's the last 4-star that was released with episode 5, you know, for free, and we'll likely see Victorika be like the equivalent here. Right, so yeah, Victorika being a 4-star, she doesn't get an artifact or anything of that sort. I guess you can also argue that she technically has her own artifact. She is the artifact with Hilag's Lance. I don't know if Hilag's Lance is the ideal artifact for her. It likely isn't. You're probably going to be building her with a DPS artifact, right? So I do want to draw some parallels to her with a PvE counterpart here, right? So I've mentioned Fire Cecilia, and I want us to take a look at just how similar her kit is to Fire Cecilia's, right? So let's go here and take a look at Fire Cecilia's S2. It is an AoE attack, but Fire Cecilia doesn't grant herself a counterattack buff. She's a HP scaling bruiser, right? Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. So if you build a Fire Cecilia like me for PvE content, this might be like a variant of what you could have. You could have a faster Cecilia with no crit. I built mine with damage to help out with the Earth Expedition. But if we go into the skills here, the S2 is an AoE, right? Instead of buffing herself, she just debuffs the opponent, so she decreases attack and speed for 2 turns, and she can also dispel 1 buff. So that's kind of nice, right, against bosses and stuff. And Cecilia is bulky enough to be able to tank. She could be a frontline tank. Victorika likely isn't going to be doing that. I think in the demonstration she had like 10k health. Now, here's where more of the parallels happen. The S3, Cecilia's S3 does grant immunity to all allies for 2 turns. However, she also ends up provoking all enemies for 1 turn and grants a barrier to herself. So she, again, is more of a tank in terms of this role. She's going to be provoking, protecting herself, grants immunity to all allies. She actually used to be a really good pocket pick that I used to use into Ambitious Tywin, which is pretty funny. But again, now Cecilia is not as viable anymore. I'm sure you can make her work, but just not as viable in the current meta, where there's a lot of other things that can outshine her. And then the last thing is her S1, where you can see she attacks with a spear, and then has a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. Now, Victorika, again, is just missing all of this other stuff, where if the target is inflicted with a decreased attack, the effect chance increases by 25%. And, well, wouldn't you have it, her S2 synergizes with the S1, kind of like Victorika's. You know, you can get attack down here with the S2, and then you can get the 75% chance defense break on the S1. Kind of like how Victoria gets the counter buff on S2, and then hopefully you counter and inflict defense break with her S1. But yeah, enough about Fire Cecilia here. Just thought I'd point out the little parallels that we see. Again, Ares Knight, much more viable star sign. You can see with like Brig, Aries, right, much more viable star sign. Even Karina is an Aries. Crow is a Pisces, and Pisces Knights are really, really tanky. We just had the new Crow released as well, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out that video, do check it out, because we go in depth with the analysis and show you a few builds that are possible, right? Last Rider Crow as well, really tanky knight that you can see out there in the meta, and he's Pisces in terms of star sign. Now, when it comes to the builds, let's talk about builds. Unfortunately, I was skimming through all the knights that I had, and I don't have a single other Leo knight besides Navy Captain Landy and Fire Charlotte. So let's take a look at the 5-star version of what Victorika could be. Do keep in mind the base stats are going to be a little bit lower, so the stats you see here aren't going to be 100% reflective of what the Victorika would look like. But I would say when it comes to sets, you're likely going to be running either a speed set or a destruction set, right? And depending on how well built your Victorika is, if you're starting out and you don't have much gear, crit rate is really great to increase your critical hit chance and get that 100% crit rate you need. If you're using her in PvE content, if you're fighting earth things like Golem, because she's fire, she only needs 85% crit rate. She gets the other 15% from elemental advantage. She does want a defense break, so maybe in some cases you want some effectiveness, so you can go for the hit chance here, the hit set. That is an option as well. But you also, if you want to go for some extra damage, penetration set is probably the way to go. Helps that S3 nuke really, really hard. And I guess a little bit less recommended, you can go for a torrent set. If you're having difficulty killing the waves of mobs with her S2, you can go for the torrent set there. Could help you set up for some kills. But I'd say penetration set is likely going to be the most common 2-set piece that you're going to use on her, and either speed or destruction depending on your speed tuning for your team, or if you just want absolute damage. So let's go for a destruction and penetration build to see what we can kind of come up with, if it's possible for us to actually manage to build a decent damage PvE unit that's attack scaling, right? So we'll see here. I can probably slap, ooh, actually this boot's pretty good. Look at that. Flat attack's probably going to be helpful as well. Again, you don't really need the bulk for her, which is kind of nice. So we will, ooh, whoa, that's a pretty good one actually. Yeah, if I had thrown this thing on, oh my god, guys. But, well, I'm going to assume that you're not going to be throwing your best gear onto a PvE unit, right? If you're building her for PvP, it might be a little bit different here. But yeah, let's go for something perhaps like this. I mean, it's a pretty mediocre piece, right? Something like this would probably be a little bit better in terms of crit rate. We'll see if we need the crit rate. I'm going to try to prioritize a little bit of speed. Destruction, so that we can go for, let's see, some more damage. Ooh, some of these necklaces are actually pretty nice. I can probably just throw on anything that has like a decent amount of crit rate and attack. Like this piece is pretty good, 20% crit rate, and this defense could be modded back into attack. That's always fine. Let's try to go for some higher crit rate pieces. Let's see. So yeah, this could be the piece right here. I'm gonna actually go for this one. 19 crit, but we have actually a little bit more speed. So we'll go with that penetration piece there. So the other pieces I have need to all be destruction to complete the 4-piece set. Let's see if we can get some speedy pieces in here. Yeah, let's go for something like this. Throw that on there. Actually, in fact, if we don't need the crit rate, we could go for ROM, but yeah, we'll keep it on that piece there. See if we can get some attack going. That has no crit rate. I'm pretty sure we're going to be hurting for some crit in just a bit. So let's see what Meru has. Oh, actually, this one's not a terrible piece. Okay, so we'll put that on, and then the last destruction piece, we're overcapped on crit, and this has 7 crit. Oh, actually, so we don't really need crit on this piece at all. So that's wonderful. Let's go for something with a bit more attack, and we can maybe. I mean, again, this is not a great piece, but it is something that could work. I definitely don't want to give something like that. You're not investing 22 speed pieces onto a PvE unit. Yeah, let's go with something like this. So if you threw something like this onto her, look, it's not terrible, right? It is not anything amazing. Do keep in mind some of the stats here will be a little bit lower just because she is going to be a 4-star unit and not a natural 5-star. If I went here and let's say I switched the boot, I bet you if I switched the boot to an attack boot, things will look a lot better. I just need one that has enough crit rate, which I believe, actually, this one's not a terrible boot. Let's go for that. Oh, there you go. So, yeah, we're overcapped by 3% on crit rate, which I think is fine. You can easily swap out a piece here or there, so something like this, right? The necklace can be swapped out, let's say, for something that's just a little bit less crit, but a little bit more attack. Let's go for something along the lines of, oh, maybe this, actually. Yeah, look at that. So perfect amount of crit rate. Look at that. Almost 4,000 attack here. Not quite 4,000, right? But decent bulk to survive in PvE. 152 speed. You're not going to be 0 speed and like getting lapped by the boss 2 or 3 times. You're still going to be keeping up with the pace of the fight, but now you're over capped on, oh, we have 350 crit damage and pretty decent stats here. So that's with the destruction build. I think it's pretty viable. It's pretty good. If you wanted to go for a speed build, again, this is with 0 effectiveness, by the way. This is just a pure, someone else is going to set up for defense break and I'm going to one-shot with an S3 type of build. You can also go for like rage set as well for PvE content. If they have a defense break, just absolutely nuke them. We'll see if we can come up with a rage one in just a second, but speed build first, right? So going for speed, let's see if I can, I'll keep the 2 penetration pieces here. I think that's good. Let's go for these pieces here. And with a speed build, you just have to keep in mind that you're really going to be hurting for damage. Unless, I mean, again, if you're getting an attack boot here, you should be fine. But let's say we're going for a bit of extra speed. Again, you're definitely not investing your best pieces into a PvE type unit. So we'll not do that as well. Let's go for, you're going to lose a lot of crit damage that way, actually. So let's keep on fishing for something decent. A lot of my units are just holding placeholder gear here. So we're not going to, again, we're not trying to invest amazing stuff into this unit. Just want to give you a little, I mean, let's do that. It's not the most like useless piece, but it is definitely an okay piece, right? You guys can probably fish something up like that, especially if you're a more veteran player. But then again, if you're a more veteran player, you're only probably going to be investing here if she provides a ton of additional value for like PvE content and stuff like that that comes up. Let's go for something like that. I'm just stealing my Melissa's gear here. Just trying to see if I can get away with some extra speed. And for our speed ring, let's go for, oh, that was my... Sorry, that was my event crafting piece. I was like, why is this a perfect piece here? This one looks... Oh, you know what? Let's just take all Melissa's pieces. It's fine. So yeah, you see, we're hurting for crit rate, actually, right now. So let's take away some of the speed here. Almost 200 speed is kind of crazy for not having a speed boot. So that's kind of cool. Let's go for a little bit of this, right? A bit of effectiveness might actually help a little bit. Let's see if we can get anything with effectiveness here. Oh, I don't have any penetration boots that do that. This could be okay. Yeah, let's go throw something like this on there. So we might need to get rid of some of the penetration pieces we have here. See if there's any effectiveness going on. Not really. Again, Victorika is going to be one of those odd units because the star sign's so weird. You have like defense breaks and things you want to land, but you don't necessarily want to invest in the effectiveness stat because she's a 4-star, already low base stats, right? Let's see if I can actually just ignore that, and let's see if I can go for a penetration boot that will give her enough crit rate. Oh, we're getting close there. Let's see if we can get sort by crit rate here. Oh, okay, that's a pretty decent piece. Oh, that's an amazing piece, actually. Can go for something like this. Okay, maybe a little bit lower. Maybe something like, ooh, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Good enough, at least, for us to look at for right now. So, yeah, right now we can say that she is pretty much complete with this. You can obviously get a little bit more crit rate here by Just not using the Melissa piece there, right? We just need 2 extra crit, which should be fine if we lower her speed just a smidge. You can go for something like this. We're overcapped a little bit, but yeah, fine-tuning this. I'm not gonna continue wasting our time here with fine-tuning it. But oh, actually, boom, look at that. Look at that, perfect 100 crit rate. But again, your damage suffers. You're gonna be much faster, yes, much faster here, but is it worth it? Victorika seems like a unit that will be better off just bursting down the opponent, right? So while this looks like a decent, well-rounded stat line, even in PvP, you can't really bring her into it. This is way too low of a stat line to bring into PvP. And in PvE, that damage isn't going to be really one-shotting all too much, so it's a little unfortunate. If you want just maximum damage, if you didn't want to go destruction and you want to go for a rage set is definitely something you can go for because it is going to hit like a truck. So let's see if we can get a good rage set going. We'll go for that right there. I'm trying to like maximize the damage we do, so I guess we don't go for anything with speed. I'll just go for something like this with just attack and crit damage. We do need, yeah, let's go for the attack there. Let's see if we have anything with crit rate. Nothing amazing, honestly. We'll probably go for a different chess piece then. For the, actually, that's not bad. We'll go with this. Flat attack percent, right? The speed can be modded out if you don't want it. This is max. Oh, that's good damage. This one has a bit more crit rate, though, so that could be good for us. And let's go for the boots. Let's see if there's any attack boots here with crit rate that we can throw on. Nothing amazing. So if I took these off, there's nothing real amazing about something like this, but look at the damage. We're already seeing some pretty good damage numbers here, right? And now let's go for penetration. Penetration set, we can go for a bit more crit. I think crit's okay. Yeah, we're definitely gonna need crit rate here. So we can definitely do something like this, right? Maybe, you know, even with a free piece like this, it's not bad, but we'll go for something like this, and then maybe I'll swap out the rage boot. We could probably do a little bit better than that. Yeah, actually this one here. So yeah, there you go. Whoa, look at that stat line, guys. Okay, I know we're 2% crit rate off, but that's something that, you know, you can modify or exchange a piece out here. I could probably modify something to increase some crit rate somewhere. But yeah, look at that. Pretty decent spread, right? Over 4,000 attack, and again, if you're fighting something like an Earth Element unit, if you're fighting, like, let's say Secretary Vera or something like that, you only need 85% crit rate, because you're a Fire Element, Elemental Advantage gives you 15% more. So, yeah, 320-something crit damage, 4,000-something attack. This is a pretty sweet-looking build, okay? So, yeah, Victorika, honestly, it looks pretty decent. Let's go ahead and take a look at the artifact here. So, when it comes to the artifacts, you just bring typical damage dealer artifacts. If you're using her in PvE content, then you're going to be bringing Daydream Joker. Daydream Joker just, again, increases damage dealt by 3% of the enemy's max health when attacking, so you're scaling with the opponent enemy's max health. Every time she attacks, 3% is chunked away. It's an amazing, amazing PvE artifact. Other things that you can use are just generic damage dealing things like Our Beautiful Seasons, increase damage by 20%, or if you got the anniversary thing, Special Strawberry Cake is also a really nice one. Same thing, right? Same effect, it just depends on which one you've gotten in the past. If you've missed all of those events and stuff and you don't have something like that, something generic like Symbol of Unity is pretty decent. It's from the guild shop there. And you can always just bring stuff like Portrait of the Saviors, right? Just increase attack or increase damage dealt by 20%. Again, that's an older event artifact, but there are other parallels that you can get that increase damage as well. So yeah, Portrait is not terrible. It's a pretty good generic artifact to have for damage, and she is a knight. When it comes to knights, though, they don't really have damage increasing artifacts that are great. Look at her on Hilog Lance. It's fantastic. The effect is just not great for her, though. You wouldn't run her on 3F or Rocket Punch Gauntlet. You could maybe run her on like Euberis's Tooth if you oh sorry, no, Euberis's Tooth is a warrior artifact. I take that back. Broken Will of the Priest is okay if you want to just penetrate the defense further. This doesn't stack additively with the penetration set, but it is pretty decent to hook up with the penetration set for extra damage. It's kind of nice. This penetration, by the way, is also on AoE damage. Penetration set only works on a single target damage, so this actually helps her S2 damage as well. So Broken Will of the Priest, pretty good, but again, hard to get artifact, Brig's artifact, right? You're getting Brig for free, you're like not summoning for his artifact. His artifact is nothing too special, but it's okay. Yeah, and then something like, you know, if you need more crit rate, Wings of Light and Shadow could actually be a decent thing to use. It gives you extra crit chance right off the bat, so if you're having a difficult time getting your crit rate capped, or if you just want to go for insane damage and you just want the artifact to give you extra damage boosts while giving you the flat 15% crit rate, it's nice to use. But other than that, just again, generic damage dealing artifacts always gonna be nice to have on her. But yeah, that's gonna pretty much be it for Victorika. There's not much else to talk about besides the fact that she is gonna be a PvE unit, probably gonna be free. Hopefully she's gonna be free. It's good to see 4 stars out there with decent kits and able to deal a lot of damage. So with that being said though, guys, let me know what you think of Victorika in the comment section down below. And until next time, take care.